Support for Consider This is provided by the University of Nebraska at Omaha College of Communication, Fine Arts, and Media.
Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
A science fiction series returns to television and is, it would seem, as popular as ever. The question is, why? Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, The X-Files. Joining us to talk more about it is UNO's Adam Tima. Adam is an associate professor and graduate program chair in the School of Communication, Fine Arts, and Media. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the program.
My pleasure.
All right, I'm going to start with kind of a loaded question.
Cool.
How do you explain the X-Files to people?
You don't. Okay, so when I got into the X-Files, I was not a first season, like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. It took a little while. I think you combine the monster of the week with the conspiracy theory, with kind of the alien propaganda stuff, with the fact that this came out in '93. Thinking all the things that were going on at that time, the fact that we were just starting to reach back out into space, these strange questions are happening, people are not feeling wonderful about the government, even though things are doing okay. Add all that together, throw it in a pot, get someone like Chris Carter, who comes along and is a fan of, Kolchak, and is a fan of those types of shows, mix it all together, and I think that's what you've got. So for people who are getting into it, are into it, I think it is the combination of all those things.
Yeah, we do have to rewind quite a ways, Adam, to get to the beginning of this whole thing. Debuts September 10, 1993, an awfully long time ago. And so you talked a little bit about it, but take us back to that time frame in terms of what Chris Carter might have been thinking to bring us into where we're going to go with this interview.
Sure. So if you take a look at the X-Files and you start asking yourself, okay, why are they doing this strange governmental alien conspiracy thing happening? I think the best thing to take a look at is what's historically happening in '93. Once you get there, we're moving kind of from one presidency into another presidency, one perspective into another perspective. People are starting to look at government a little more closely. People are starting to ask more questions about it. The questions were kind of put away for a while, but now that the Cold War is officially over and the wall has come down, we start asking these other things. We see the rise of power in the stock market. We see kind of this condensing of money towards the top 1%, if you want to use that terminology, whatever the case may be. But people are asking questions. Now, at the same time, in '93, there's this buzz is starting to happen about, so what's out there? What's the next step? What's going on? Are we really alone here? People are saying, okay, when are we going to Mars? People are saying, when are we leaving the solar system? Mm-hmm. So when you start asking those questions, people have to start asking what is out there and what are the implications of what might or might not be out there. Yeah. So I think you add all those questions together, and I think that's what gets it going at the time.
Okay, so you have the great idea, right, based on all the things that you've just talked about. Now you have to cast this program, right? So we have David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson, and we do have their pictures here, playing agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully. Absolutely. So talk about just that pairing and how important that was to the program.
Well, if you look through some of the notes on the X-Files and look through, the mythology of it and the history of it, Carter wanted to reverse the gender roles. He wanted to have the skeptic not being the stoic male, but be the very grounded, very professional female lead, and the male lead was going to become the more emotionally attached, things of that nature. So now we have Carter, even in '93, playing with those, what we might call archetypal or stereotypical gender roles. Take these two together, just in Anderson and Duchovny, and you've got two very different acting styles, got two very different approaches to characters. But I think that difference in a character and difference in the actors adds to the chemistry that happens on the screen with those two. Obviously it worked, because we've got 10 seasons of the TV show originally. We've got the 2 movies. We don't talk about the second movie, but we've got the 2 movies, and then we've got now the 6-part series. So obviously there's something there that people really are drawn to, and they obviously are able to work with well.
Yeah. Talk about some of the other characters in this program.
So you've got Skinner, A.D. Skinner, and you pretty much think his name is A.D. for the first, I don't know how many seasons, referring to him as A.D. Skinner the whole time. Originally he's a company man, and the notion of the company man becomes very much part of the mythos of X-Files and the conspiracy theory behind the X-Files. So he's the middle management guy. He's the guy who doesn't ask any questions, doesn't push back. There's this inkling in the back of his head something's going wrong, but he won't mention any of it because he's trying to move up in the FBI and the bureaucracy of that space. Obviously he changes tack towards the end of the original run, and he's just full-blown in it now with the 6-part. We've got the smoking man, who's he is the boogeyman. He is the guy in the shadows. He is maybe not the one pulling the strings, but one of the people pulling strings. And so he is the exact representation of everything that Mulder despises, everything that Scully is butting her head against when her scientifically trained mind is trying to understand things beyond this. I would argue that the Monster of the Week is sort of a character that's very much an homage back to older storytelling on television, but at the same time it does allow for both levity in the in the episodes, but also adds to this arc of we don't know what's out there. We're only scratching the surface of what's really going on in the world. And the other characters, you have the family members, you have Mulder's sister, who becomes a recurring important part of his underlying conspiracy, and well as his own drive to do what he's doing. We have Scully's family, who we find out has ties to the Navy, and we find out has these 2 brothers, and we have all the discord that's going on in that family. Spoiler alert right now, if, in case you don't remember that Mulder and Scully had a child, and we find out now in the 6th part of what maybe was going on or not going on with that child. Even after adoption, we start getting flashes of and potential discussions of what's happening with William. So there are a host of characters that come into play. I think one of the biggest backdrop characters is actually culture as it is right now. None of this works if we didn't exist in a society right now that we weren't asking questions, that we weren't taking second looks at things. So X-Files doesn't happen if we aren't going, okay, what's the government really up to? I think the New Hampshire primaries are a classic example. People are asking the questions. And in that environment is where the X-Files plays in.
And obviously the X-Files doesn't happen if it's not for Chris Carter, who created the series. We're going to put his photograph up too. Cool. Tell us what you know about Chris Carter.
So my understanding of Chris Carter is that graduated from journalism school in the mid-'80s. He wrote for a surfing magazine for a number of years. He got hired on as a writer for Disney. He then started slowly generating kind of script ideas and playing with his own interests and backgrounds. I mentioned the idea of the Night Stalker, Kolchak. He's a huge Kolchak fan, it sounds like, and so he wanted to start writing around that. But the other things I read about his background as well, he was raised or grew up during the Watergate investigations, which means that, it's kind of like, I remember very much the Iran-Contra hearings. So that idea of people being put on trial, of the government not being trustworthy, of things happening behind the doors that we're not aware of. I think that those influences really helped shape what became the X-Files.
Okay, so to get to present day, we're going to go back, and I know this is going to be tough, but briefly, right? Even if it's just some highlights, take us through the first few seasons, which you said you weren't really into it the first season, but then you kind of caught on. So for those people who didn't watch this series, give us a brief synopsis.
All right, so the first run. So we'll call that the first 10 years is the first run. 8 of those 10 years, it is all Mulder and Scully.
Mm-hmm.
It is those two against the universe, right? And that's exactly how it's set up. And they're doing, they're going after the strange cases, the ones that people are like, this is nothing, and they say, oh no, there's something here, and of course they find something. And so every week this happens. The complete over the arc that runs throughout is this notion of the conspiracy that Mulder's sister was abducted when she was a child, never to return from that abduction, and he has been on the hunt for her ever since. As that is going through the 8 years, 10 years, that original run, we see glimpses and insights into what drives him, why he's doing what he's doing. He feels, and he has the evidence in his mind to prove that there is this, conspiracy, mm-hmm. that aliens are coming to take over the Earth, and that there has been this cabal, this, I believe they're referred to as the syndicate or something that lines in the world of very powerful men who made deals. And basically, as long as our families are safe, we will deliver the planet to you because you're coming anyways, we'll make it easier for you, mm-hmm. kind of deal. And so that original arc really looks at him, Mulder trying to uncover it, Scully's injected into his world, mm-hmm. to debunk everything he's doing and basically give him the FBI reason to fire him. Right. That's the whole reason she's there. But over the course of the seasons, we see that her skepticism is the thing that actually cements for her that Mulder might be onto something, mm-hmm. because she's taking that scientific perspective towards it. She's looking at the evidence. Based on the evidence, she goes, oh wait, this shouldn't be possible, yet it is. Mm-hmm. So you have his paranoia and her skepticism that drives the arc, ultimately culminating with, kind of an end game that occurs in the last season and a half. Mulder falls out as the primary male lead in about season 8. Robert Patrick comes in, mm-hmm.
as
kind of his replacement, and really at this point trying to debunk Scully. Because now Scully is full on this, because now Mulder's been vanished away,
right.
and now Patrick's character gets involved. Well, of course, he gets convinced, and another character, Reyes, comes in, and she gets convinced. And season 10 really is them trying to wrap it all up. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the original arc.
Yeah, because they discontinued, again, for folks who are not following the series,
right.
They discontinued this in 2002.
Yep.
And it fell apart, in your opinion, because?
In 2002, I would say it probably started falling apart because the casting changed. It seemed, I don't think Carter was as involved with it anymore. They did change locations. They were shooting in Vancouver for the first 6-7 years of it, and then really to appease Duchovny, because he had other projects going on, they moved to Los Angeles. When you have a tight crew working like that on any television project, to change the space you're working in, to change a lot of your crew, mm-hmm. to change your writing team, because they're not going to relocate from Vancouver to LA, because Vancouver's got its own filming industry going on right now. That's going to change everything about the show. And I think all of those things contributed to the show kind of going downhill.
Well, and contributions, speaking of those two, there were spin-offs, which folks would expect from a
sure.
television program such as this one. What were the spin-offs?
So the main spin-off was The Lone Gunmen. The Lone Gunmen were those 3 absolute conspiratorial geeks who were lovable throughout the whole of the series. The only way you could get a hold of them was if you put a tape an X in your window, and then they would know to come find you, and they would send cryptic notes on your, at that time, very high-end computer network, or on your phone, or whatever the case may be. They tried doing that for a season to try and say what were their lives like, and it lasted a season, and Fox went, you're done, and so they cut that. Mm-hmm. So that's spin-off 1. Spin-off 2 was, I'd probably say, the 2 movies. The first movie was literally everything we wanted the last season to actually be. From abduction to everything else, it was exactly what we were hoping for. So that's Fight the Future. The other one, I Want to Believe, it was not great. It could have, there was potential there. but it just did not live up to, I think, what they've been setting up for it.
Well, I want to leave these graphics up for just a minute because just to give viewers an idea of time frame. So the movie on the left was the first movie,
Yep.
right? And that came out what year?
That I don't remember.
Okay, in the midst of the series. Or was it post the series?
That was post-series, I
Okay,
thought.
so they were both post-series. And in your opinion, first one good, second one
Not so great.
not so great. And again, you think it was released, why?
I think the first one was the wrap-up. First one I think was a really smart move on Carter's part and Fox Productions' part to bring the series to closure. Because people were looking for it. People were really trying to figure out what was going on, and that was a nice way to do it. The other episode, the other movie, was potentially from what some people have said was an old episode that was never produced. They expanded it out. Why did it? We don't know. It did not follow the mythology. It didn't add to the overarching arc of what they were trying to do with it. And so I think for those reasons, and it seemed like it was put together rather quickly. It just didn't have the same. It didn't have the same thing that X-Files always had.
Yeah,
So
but probably, Adam, from where you sit in terms of your role, not the first time that's happened. I mean,
No.
I think that's disappointing for people who follow a series like The X-Files, see a great first movie and then see that. Is there anything coming to mind in terms of maybe some examples of some other projects where folks have been on the edge of their seats and then something comes out and it's kind of a disappointment?
Sure. I think even if you look at most recently, if you kind of look at the Marvel universe right now and all the Marvel movies that are coming out. So for me, I'm a big comic book fan. I've been reading them for a long time. I'm very particular about the ones I read, but when I was first getting them when I was younger, I mean, I knew all the Avenger characters. I knew who they all were, all that kind of stuff. So when they announced that they greenlighted the Avengers, so they did Iron Man, did great. They did Thor, did great. Did Captain America, did great. And you knew what was coming next. It was just kind of barreling down the pipe at you. The first Avengers did exactly what it should have done. So it was really well done. It was very smart. The second one attempted to take really a year's worth of comic books, which was the Age of Ultron, and cram them all together into a 2.5-hour movie, and not follow the actual storyline of the Age of Ultron at all. And so when that happened, those of us who are comic book people went, what's going on here? This doesn't feel quite right. And I think that is what happens when you have a genre or you have a franchise that has a good formula and doesn't follow the formula they've established. And I think we see that happening there.
Okay, but then you try to regroup,
Yep.
like the X-Files
Yep.
did, right? So there was rumor last year that
Oh,
this
yes.
was, we were going to have another season and so
Yep.
forth. So before we show the trailer
Yep.
to the season that's currently on the air, if you're Chris Carter, right, and you know what you know about pop culture
Yep.
and all the rest, how on earth then, 14 years later,
Yep.
do you bring people back, especially mindful of the movies, right? You had the one, your opinion, brought great closure.
Yep.
The other one muddies the waters,
Yep.
and now we can't quite figure out. So you're Chris Carter, you're bringing it back.
Yep.
How do you do that mindful of everything that's gone before?
Number one, you do it at Comic-Con, which is what they were smart to do. They did the announcement at San Diego Comic-Con, and people exploded. I mean, if you watch the video from that announcement, it's hysterical. So you've got that. Then you do what I think they were smart to do, which was, as opposed to doing a movie, go to episodic, but follow what's becoming more of a model, which is almost a BBC model. Do 6 episodes. Create a constructed arc, top to bottom, have it be contained, with a couple of, I'm sure, little things that'll happen at the end in case they want to bring it back. But do it in such a way that you can have focus on the goal of the actual storyline. I think what happened with things, I'm also a big J.J. Abrams fan. What happened with things like Lost, even happened with things like Fringe, and Alias, and things of that nature, you get, when it starts going on season 3, season 4, you start getting lost in your own storyline. And I think Chris Carter pulled it right by keeping it focused and contained. Plus, he has actors who, I mean, like they're probably having fun doing this, but this is not all we want to do. I mean, Julie Anderson has had great success in the BBC with several series. Duchovny did Aquarius last year. He did Californication for several years. So I mean, they've had both success in their own right. This is more almost an homage. And I think that's a smart way to approach it.
Well, and I had even heard tale that folks wanted you to almost forget the second movie.
I wouldn't doubt
Just
it.
kind of push it back and pretend like it didn't happen as we head into what is now season 10. 6 episodes of The X-Files. We have the trailer.
Awesome.
Let's go ahead and take a look at that.
Good.
It'll probably start on a Friday. What will seem like an attack on America by terrorists or Russia. Driven by a well-oiled, well-armed, and multinational group of elites using alien technology that government's been hiding for 70 years. Like yourself, I'm a true believer. What I need is your expertise.
You said if I ever put the pieces together that you would confirm.
And have you?
I've seen something.
You're nearly there. You're close.
I can't do this alone.
Yeah.
I'm here.
They police us and spy on us, tell us that makes us safer. We've never been in more danger.
And do something about it, Mulder.
I have seen this before. You're on fire, believing that you're onto some truth, that you can save the world.
This is my life. This is everything I believe in.
You are on dangerous ground here.
I know what I'm doing.
We have a small problem.
Wow, didn't miss a beat, right? An estimated 16 million viewers tuned in, including you.
Including me.
What'd you think for that first episode?
First episode was great. It was literally what they needed to do. They're a little stiff. The actor, you could tell they're trying on old shoes again, But I would argue that even by episode 2, we see the characters fully coming back into their own. I would also argue that because the characters had not seen each other for a long time, not as long as 14 years, but they've been kind of distant. We see that occurring, and then we see the distance closing within the first episode or 2.
Yeah, I thought what was interesting, and as I'm watching that clip, I'm thinking to be the actor and actress to come back together after that long and get back into that role would have been tough. But one of the things Carter did was he kept things consistent. The open, right, and some other things. Talk about why that was so important.
I think you don't want people to think that this is a whole new thing. We're not trying to reboot. We're not trying to make a version 2.0. This is literally where the story picks up, and you just kind of slide right back into it as an audience member. And if you have the whole mythology in your head, it should feel like this makes sense. Yeah, it's been 14 years. Of course this would have happened. Of course, these things occurred and those things occurred. Why wouldn't she be missing, the son they gave up? Why wouldn't he still be digging? Of course, Mulder became a recluse. Why wouldn't he become a recluse? All those things. She, of course, went to work for a nonprofit hospital, that's under the auspices of the church. That makes perfect sense for those characters. So I think that they made you as an audience member, and they made the script all come in at one shot, and you go right back into the game.
Adam, how is this going to shake out then? I mean, how it's an abbreviated season.
Yep.
So that final episode, after everything that series has been through, what do you think?
I think if they're smart, they call it good. I think they find a way to wrap it. I think if you start dropping 6-episode mini seasons every year and a half, I think it loses what it has. And so if Carter's smart, they will do that. Unless for some unknown reason it gets green lighted and Fox decides to actually pick up the whole thing and actually run with it. I have not seen anything online or in the press that would suggest that right now, so I don't know. I think that they should, honestly, I'd like to see them keep it as it is.
Yeah, I think the viewers are thinking, can they really tie this all up? We like loose ends to be tied up in series that we've been following. And I guess the question becomes, do you think Carter can do that and have viewers be satisfied in this being it for the series?
That will be the trick. I think that will absolutely be the trick. And I think that in 2 weeks we'll have a better sense of what's going to happen. If you watch the last episode and you think, okay, it's coming back, you'll know. I think it'll be a straightforward duh moment. On the other side, if in that last episode, everyone goes, oh, that makes sense. That within the world of the mythology, that all comes together, then it's going to be done.
Any other series you're following, Adam, right now?
Because I'm a comic book guy, so Agent Carter, I'm a big fan. I think it's a blast. I've been really fascinated by what the CW is doing with DC Comics. So with The Flash, with Arrow, not a big Legends of Tomorrow fan. I gotta warm up to that a little bit. My wife and I are big Blacklist fans. We enjoy that. We're looking forward to Blind Spot when that comes back. So that's really kind of where my watching goes. I'm also working on a project right now that looks at J.J. Abrams' papers or shows. So I'm binge watching Fringe right now. Okay. So that's taking up the most of my watching time.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Final thoughts. Talking about the X-Files today, 10th season. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Watch it. Give it. People who've never seen it before, give it an opportunity. I think you'll enjoy it. I think that it speaks to what's happening right now in culture. We can kind of use it as a litmus test. If
they could pick up anything, if they missed this season, thoughts about that first movie, what would that do for them?
I think the first movie gives you a lot. I think go online and find what people have said are the primary arc episodes through the initial run. I think watch the movie, you'll get it.
Adam Tuma, thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
being here today to talk about the X-Files television series. Only time will tell. We'll have to see what that 6th episode holds for us. Thank you very much for being here and sharing your time, your stories, and your enthusiasm for this.
Sounds good.
All right. And thank you all for watching. We will see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or email us at considerthis@tvmail.unomaha.edu.